are a go. Good morning,
Okay.
everyone, and welcome to another historian's interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And today we have another historian making their debut all the way from the country of India. Now, my guest today is currently pursuing a master's degree in Palaeography, Epigraphy. I'm probably butchering these, so I apologize. And Numismatics from the Indian Institute of Heritage, Noida, formerly known as the National Museum Institute of History of Art, Conservation, and Museology. Additionally, she has briefly studied museology, archaeology, and research methodology, broadening her studies in the field. Her skills in numismatics focuses on the ancient period as of now, where she specializes in understanding the motifs and devices along with deciphering legends on the ancient Indian coins. And these range from local tribal coins, Indo-Greek, Scythian, Parthian, and more. She also engages in analyzing the historical significance, iconography, and minting techniques of ancient Indian coinage. And this intricate study has deepened her understanding of economic, political, and cultural aspects of Indian history. She holds a bachelor's degree in history from Indraprastha, again, I am butchering that, I apologize, College for Women, University of Delhi, where she studied all three periods of Indian history, European history, and the history of the United States, along with the history of China and Japan, archives and museums, and Indian art and architecture, which includes Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain. So without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest joining us all the way from India, historian Divya Chowdhary. Divya, welcome to the show.
Namaste. Thank you for that introduction. I think from my smile you can tell how how welcome I feel on this podcast, Gabriel. Yes. And like you said that you managed to pronounce a lot of the words correctly. There are two things. Number one,
Of course,
numismatics.
I knew I was
Numismatics,
going to mess it
study
up,
of
so I
coins.
apologize.
That's numismatics, which pertains to the study of coinage, and then it is Indraprastha College for women. But you know what, doesn't matter. But it's an affiliated college to University of Delhi. That's the larger academia here. But yes, thank you so much for introducing me. And let me tell you one more thing. I have just recently completed my master's degree by submitting my
Oh,
master's thesis. Yes, completed, and it's just the matter of reviewing and marks that's going to happen. Otherwise, I'm done with the master's degree as well, and I will be pursuing full-fledged research in historical analysis, epigraphy, and numismatics.
well, that is awesome, Divya. Congratulations. That
Thank
is
you.
an incredible feat. So, before we dive into your areas of study, which there is a
Mhm.
lot, I must say, but equally fascinating, let's talk a little bit more about you and your road to becoming an historian. So, let's start at the beginning. So, how did this interest in history come about? Was it instilled in you from a teacher you had growing up, a family member, or did you sort of come into this love for history on your own?
I think this is my favorite question. Favorite question. I was in eighth grade when I first understood my love for history, and it was driven by a sense of curiosity. I
Hmm.
had started reading uh, Hindu mythological books, wherein we always read about Itihas, Mahakavya, which is Ramayana and Mahabharata. In India, when they are told the stories of Ram, Sita, Krishna, and Arjuna. From the books that I was given
Hmm.
about Hindu mythology, I then started asking myself how much of it is history and how much of it is myth. Some
Right.
people were saying it's not true, some people were saying no, this happened. And to find out those answers, I started going towards, I started tending more towards the humanities, towards social sciences, and eventually history. because history for me is giving me answers to questions that I was having as a kid. So it's curiosity that drove me to pursue this subject with its um, all uh, all aspects, whether it's research, whether it's you don't find something, you do. It is curiosity. So when I was 13, this was instilled in me, and when I was 17, 18, just completing my high school, I had a brilliant teacher. Here's where teachers play a role. I had a brilliant teacher who said that, Divya, your curiosity for finding the past is something that you should inculcate. So go towards these academic fora. That's how I ended up being choosing
Nice.
this career.
That's amazing, Divya. That is incredible. So, well, just to reiterate, so in grade school, sort of like this initial drive was, of course, learning the epic stories of India, the myth
Yes.
and the history, and wanting to know more. And then as you
Yes.
got older, as you mentioned, this incredible teacher instilled this drive, this passion to be curious and, ask more questions. And then from there, that's when you realize this is the area that I want to pursue for the rest of my life.
Yes. I'd add one more thing here. In my family, there are people who belong to the tech background. They're
Mm,
engineers. They're engineers. And they used to question, why is this machine working this way? If this happened to the laptop, why did it happen? I just put that why into social sciences and specifically history. That's how things came up.
nice. Incredible. And when you were, in your master's program, pursuing your master's degree, at
Mm.
what point did you make the decision, your aha moment, so to speak, that you wanted to pursue a career in the history field?
You see, I'll just reframe that question. Just what I'm understanding is that you're asking me, in the course of my study, when did I thought that this is the point, that this is why I want to pursue history more, right?
Right.
Hmm. Um, when I realized that there are a lot of narratives going around in the society,
Mm,
when I realized that there is a need for rigorous historical research, which is unbiased. It is as unbiased as history can possibly be,
right.
and and when I see that people are using historical facts to derive their identity, but then they have double standards for acting out in society in general, then I realized, okay, so to to make things clear, I would like to pursue history with its full methodology. I'll give you
Mm.
one episode. I think that would make my point clear.
Okay.
One time I was talking to let's say an esteemed friend who was senior to me in age and also in position. I was just a teenage student then, completing my high school, and this person said that no, you see, the Hindu civilization. This, first of all, the terminology is important. Hindu
Right.
civilization, the Hindu civilization is not very old. It is just 5,000 years old, and it has all been. It has a lot of foreign culture now. Nothing is Hindu anymore, and everything is Western. And when he's acting out in society, he is doing everything opposite to what he's saying. But he's justifying his actions by taking examples from history. Ram did that, or that king did that.
Mm.
And when I'm trying to say that, sir, this is not what happened, or did you question your sources? Do you know where you're speaking from? No answer. So I think my aha moment was when I realized that historical narratives need to be questioned, and a serious, rigorous methodology needs to be adopted for this field of history. When I understood this, I started pursuing it professionally. People are using history to derive their identities, but they're not aligning to it. And this
Mm,
is for general public. They need
nice.
to be told history in that manner in which it existed.
Yes,
That's all.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Divya. And that, very true here in the States. I've talked with a lot of other historians in the United States who agree with very much the same thing. You have to give the context to history. You can't use history in, as the term we use, the postmodernist
Yes.
methodology. It doesn't work, and it creates a very false narrative, and ultimately it changes history. Now, leading into that, let's talk about sort of your research that you have worked on, either like any papers you've done in schools or any journals that you have written. So let's talk a little bit about that. So from the papers and the journals that you have been a part of in your academic journey, from your bachelor's degree program to your master's program, whenever you
Yes.
worked on either, what were sort of the goals you had as the historian, but also the promise to your fellow academics who would read your paper? And the reason I bring this question up is that as historians, there are many reasons for us to either publish something, write something, or be involved in something. Sometimes it's to be involved in the scholarship, sometimes it's to challenge the scholarship, and sometimes it's to offer a different perspective. So for you, Divya, ultimately in your writing, how do you showcase your approach to history from the research, from the training you've gotten from your undergraduate to your master's, and ultimately, what is it you want people to learn from your approach to history?
Okay, that's a very good question and well framed question. I have three approaches in mind while writing research papers and publishing
Mm-hmm.
the results. Number one, updating the current scenario.
Mm,
Number two, challenging existing scholarship. And number three, finding finding future scope of research
right.
or gaps. You see, when we do research and we don't find an answer, even that is a product of the research. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, these three things are my main point, are my main approaches to writing research paper. For instance, when I wrote my research paper for, this was in my bachelor's, I wrote and presented on Ashokan edicts in Delhi. So there
Mm,
are three edicts, three inscriptions dated to the Mauryan king Ashok in the capital city of Delhi, capital of India. And I did a survey of the existing inscriptions. How is their condition? How is the Archaeological Survey of India maintaining it? Things like that. What
mm,
is the level of dereliction? Can current visitors approach it? Can you go upstairs? Can you read Brahmi? Can you read the Prakrit? What is the condition? And also to bring the limelight back on Ashokan inscriptions. So to update the people about the monuments in Delhi, specifically Ashokan inscriptions. So that was one of my aims. The second one, I'll give an example from this paper that I presented in an international conference. It was We had Thai delegates over in our institute. They were also presenting their papers. So
mm.
this paper was the position of women in the Khmer Empire through Sanskrit inscriptions of Cambodia. And what in this paper, my aim was to challenge existing scholarship, wherein they were saying that while um, while the Cambodian society, especially Khmer Empire, adopted everything that was so much Indian, Sanskrit language, the way of writing the inscriptions, the culture, clothes, pandits, which are the Brahmin priests, the king, everything they adopted. But why are we having matrilineal genealogies, matrilineal line of succession in the Khmer Empire, when in India, at the same time, you have a patrilineal line of succession? And the reason that the existing scholarship was giving was, especially this scholarship existing was mostly colonial. And the reason
Mm.
that they were giving was that because Cambodian society was, uh, it was, when Indians came, they brought civilization. Before that, the Cambodian society was uncivilized, and a marker of uncivilized society is when you have women in power, when you can trace things, when you can trace lineages from women, that is a sign of tribal society. So it's only when the Indians came there with the Kondinya and Soma, that's how civilization reached Cambodia, and that's how patrilineal happened. Patrilineal line of succession happened. So my paper was questioning that by reading the Sanskrit inscriptions of Cambodia. Another reason is challenging the norms. And the third thing that I mentioned was, I'll give an example of the papers, two papers that I presented for completion of my postgraduate degree. The importance of epigraphy as a source for reconstructing the history of any region, actually. And India itself is very rich in epigraphic heritage. So one of my papers was analyzing Muhammad bin Sam. This is Muhammad Ghori, and he is the Turkish commander who invaded Delhi in 12th century and changed
Mhm.
the course of history in India.
Yes.
I took his the coins that he issued, and I took the inscriptions in which he is mentioned. And I was trying to tell people that notice that this person, Muhammad Ghori, whom you know so popularly, was actually known as Sahabuddin by the local people, by Delhiites in the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. And on his coins, he is issuing Lakshmi type coins. In Islam, you're not supposed to mint any kind of coin with any kind of a humanoid figure. It's animate figure. It's against the theology of Islam. But when Muhammad Ghori was here, he continued the kind of coinage that Indians had earlier to get that kind of money cannot stop, trade cannot stop, circulation of money cannot stop, and he continued the Lakshmi type coins.
Mm.
So my aim was to tell people that epigraphy and coins is a very important source of rewriting history. And as of now, we know Muhammad Ghori only through the literature that we have: Sanskrit literature, vernacular literature, and Persian literature. What about the coins in epigraphy? You must look at history with all archaeological and literary sources combined. So these are my three aims while writing research papers.
Incredible, Divya. Incredible. And as a little tangent, this Turkish general that um, you mentioned, he is also, and I hope I get my history right, he is the
Yes.
founder of the Mughal Empire in India that dominated for several hundred years, correct?
No, actually not.
Oh, okay.
This Turkish general that I'm talking about is Muhammad Ghori, who came to India in the 12th century CE. Um, he is the person whose slave Qutbuddin Aibak established Delhi Sultanate, the Delhi Sultanate. And after the
Okay.
last king of Delhi Sultanate, Ibrahim Lodhi, was defeated by Babur, that is when Babur in the 16th century founded the Mughal Empire. So I
Ah,
am talking about the earlier phase of Turkish invasion in India. Muhammad Ghori
okay.
in the 12th century.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Dia. Thank you so much for that. So that is incredible that you have this very, very, specific but also concise approach to how you
Hmm.
approached historical scholarship, the sources, and the literature. Now, what was sort of like family reaction when you told them that you were pursuing a degree in history? Because I have shared this question with a lot of historians in Europe and here in the States, and I'm wondering if the answer is a little bit the same.
When I took humanities and when I was pursuing history, my family members expected that I will appear for the UPSC Civil Services examination. It's a grand deal in India. It's one
Hmm.
of the toughest exams to crack to get a administrative government post in India. very highly respected. It's like a huge deal in India.
Right.
UPSC civil services exams. I was expected that I'll be preparing for that exam and I'll be getting a government job of an administrator, not
Mm,
as a historian, as an administrator, being a part of the government. And for this civil services exam, we need to study everything that comes under the sun, whether it's science and tech a little bit, you have to study geography, you have to study political science, IR, everything. It is, and history comes along with all the other subjects.
absolutely.
Eventually, eventually, I had to, it was a tussle, it is still a tussle. It's not very easily accepted by my family that I would like to pursue history in general. Of course, I have a couple of supporters also in my family, otherwise, it's very difficult to sustain yourself. So
Right.
I do have, for instance, my sister. She really appreciates me and she pushes me. Keep doing. You can do this. If there is anybody I know who can do history, it's you. Keep doing. My sister really appreciates me. But other than that, overall relatives, overall family, they think, what will you do while taking history as a subject? What is this profession? They don't know. For them, humanities and history means UPSC civil services examination, the end. But
Mm,
it's I think it's a lack of awareness. As much as they're aware about the tech background, corporate sector, what happens, even let's say you are a CA, a legal profession, everybody knows everything about all of these things. But a lack of awareness exists when it comes to being a professional with history as your core discipline. So
right.
I think it is more than them being against this discipline. I think they are fidgety because of the lack of awareness that comes with history as a profession.
Mm. And what you just mentioned, Divya, is something that we will be touching on much later in detail when we get to the business side of being an
Mm.
historian. But now let's actually talk on some opinion and reflective questions because I would love to hear your thoughts on some of these. So we'll start with the first one. So, as historians, we are very, very passionate about, showcasing our research and sharing with the
Mm.
world, who we are and how we can contribute to the scholarship. And it may take, many years for us to really refine our research to get exactly where we want it to be. And in today's digital age, as an historian and publishing our work online, it is a double-edged sword in the sense that on one end, we have individuals who are eager to learn about our research and
Mm.
offer feedback and things to improve upon. But on the other side, unfortunately, we do leave ourselves exposed to a lot of hate speech, a lot of negativity, people calling into question our backgrounds as historians, and that can be very detrimental to our overall sense of
Yes.
well-being and confidence. And of course, imposter syndrome is always going to be there in the historical field, especially if you are, let's say, a presenter on a field of study that many people believe has already been covered. There's no need to do further research, and it can be a little intimidating. So, this is a two-part question, Divya.
Mm.
First part, have you ever had that sense of heightened anxiety or imposter syndrome when you were in school and working on your publications? And if so, or if not, this is the second part, what disciplined you to continue refining your skills as an historian because you knew to your core that no matter what life threw at you, this was an area of study that you want to commit for the rest of your life?
Mm. Okay. I think I have one line answer to this.
Okay.
Inner calling. The voice inside me kept me pushing. Uh, you see, every time I tried to choose some other career option or take some other field of action, there was something inside me telling me, no,
Mm,
you have to stick to this. You're good at this, stick to this, learn more, and do it in a disciplined manner. Just push through. And that inner calling kept me stuck to this discipline, and it is still keeping me stuck to this discipline. I can't leave it. This is, I think, one point that I'd like to say here. Secondly, can you repeat? Were you asking? What were you asking about the imposter syndrome? What was that question?
Oh yes. So when you were in your academic journey from your bachelor's
Huh.
to your master's, have you ever had that sense of imposter syndrome and heightened anxiety? And what I mean by that is when you were going to present a finding that you've researched and put a lot of hard work and effort, did that ever creep into your mind, that sense of doubt of, are people going to be open-minded to my research? Are people going to take me seriously? Those kinds of emotions, did you ever have those in your academic career?
This happens. This has happened the first two times when I wrote and presented the paper, because I felt that I was very underqualified, and I don't have enough experience in expressing my research. Was I using the correct terminologies? There are people sitting who can point out to every word that I can say. What do you mean by civilization? What do you mean by being an Indian or being a Hindu? What kind of terms are you using? Or if you found PGW here, which is a painted graveware, what are the other potteries that you found? You didn't mention that in your paper. Lot of things that were going on in my mind. But I think, like I said, I pushed through it. And the thing that was telling me to push through it was the truths and the honesty with which I had conducted the research. I made it a point to tick mark all the pointers that exist for a clear research methodology to be followed without compromising on the ethics, because history cannot be compromised when it comes to writing facts. It just can't. So I think one of the things which was giving me confidence to present, even with that doubt and that anxiety, was I was true to the research methodology. And I know that I did not plagiarize it. I may have taken inspiration and I have duly cited it. But I know that this is original work. And when people throw questions at me, since I have conducted this research, I will have answers to it. And if just in case I don't, I will humbly accept and incorporate it later.
All right. That's actually really good. And now this kind of leads into a new question, which I would love to hear your thoughts on. And I've been asking a lot of my guests this question because it is a very interesting one. So I'll give some context for this question, Divya. So I've had a lot of guests on the show in my 6 to 7 years of doing this podcast. And there's been one question that I've been asking them very recently. And that is, of course, whether or not that as historians, we are in sort of like this new golden age or renaissance of history. And the reason I bring this up is that during the 4 years in lockdown, the COVID years, as I like to call it, everybody was pushed inward and rediscovering new aspects of themselves. Also, at the same time, that allowed for historical research to come about, especially from independent historians who were uncovering new details about previously established scholarship. And of course, once the lockdown years and the pandemic years slowly moved on, these scholarships were able to be published fully and share with everybody around the world. And this has begged the question of whether or not we are in a golden age or renaissance in the field of history. Some say that we are, some say that we are not, and some have gone even further and said the research that exists now, especially in the independent field within history, a majority of those were made not because they want to contribute to the scholarship, more so they were there to exist and just float around in the void. So, in your opinion, Diva, do you believe that the historical field has underwent sort of a golden renaissance or is on the verge of entering a renaissance?
I am a student of history, and when you say Renaissance, I will take it in that manner. Renaissance was a huge deal.
Mm,
Everything was about art, and it was being actively patronized. People gave respect to it, and people gave money and proper employment opportunities for it. That is what Renaissance was, right? And it
right.
had a huge legacy. Now,
Yes.
when I put your question in this context, I will say that since I have experience in my country as of now, haven't stepped out of India yet. I think it's it's on the it's on the verge maybe of
Okay.
entering a renaissance or golden age, but you know what, it's a long way to go. It
Mm,
is still a long way to go. I will not say that history has not been recognized. One of the biggest things that I'm noticing right now in India and in fact worldwide is how history is being recognized as a subject that needs to be dealt with very seriously, and
yes.
how much it is affecting our political identities, social
Mm,
identities. So, history needs to be dealt with in a certain manner. This is certainly highlighted, which is a fantastic start to for history to go into that golden age. But it is not there yet. It will take a lot of time, and it will take more researchers, more teachers, professors, changes in the academic scenario, changes in the professional scenario when you pursue history. It will take structural changes for history to reach that Renaissance and Golden Age. So I think I would say it's on the verge because it's being recognized, but not there yet.
absolutely. Absolutely. And now we turn into the business side of being a historian, which I'm very eager to hear your thoughts on, Divya. So, as a little icebreaker question, I've asked historians this, and again, the answers have been very, I don't want to say divisive in a negative sense, but they've been differing because, as historians, especially going more so of either in the public speaking field or, publication world, we have this mindset of who are we trying to write for or present for. Now, of course, since you and I and many others have been academically trained, we speak in a
Yes.
certain way and we're meant to present our research in a certain way. But sometimes, if you want to get people outside of the historical field, people who have a general idea and insight into a topic of fiction that we are presenting, we want it to be accessible to them. So that's when we have to figure out who our audience is and really fine tuning who we are as historians. So for you, Divya, in your research that you have published, as well as any events or conferences that you've been a part of where you've had to engage in public speaking, did you have a good idea of your audience? And going even further, would you say that you are an audience that caters to the academic audience, or would you consider yourself an historian that includes the academic audience as well as the general public?
I think I am a professional who will include both, and I cater to the audience because I think that's only what's sensible. The way you
Mm,
present historical facts matters a lot. So when we are speaking to academicians, we will speak with the pointers of research methodology matched, with terminology is correct. We will speak like that. But when we are explaining to lay persons, you need to give them context, and we need to dumb things down. So if I say, in Kurukshetra and in Kurdi excavations, we found PGW wares. In Purana Kila, we found this pottery ware. They probably won't understand.
That's correct.
I have to dumb it down. I have to tell them more relatable stories that you see, we found PGW pottery, which is equal, which is considered to be equal to the Mahabharat era, which happened in this time. Something which people can relate to. So I think I will cater to the audience accordingly. It is not, history is not just meant to be only for the people and then or only for the academicians. No, it's meant for both.
Absolutely. That is 100% correct. And this sort of leads forward into another question, which I love to hear your thoughts on. And I'm going to combine sort of the writer's aspect in the field of history, the researcher's side. And what I mean by that is whenever, as historians, we are researching and we are writing papers, of course, we are trained to write in a certain way and present history in a certain way based upon the scholarship and the research that we have uncovered. But at the same time, we don't want to sound like an historian from the past. We want to showcase our identity to let people know this is who we are, while also giving the respect and courtesy to the historians of the past and their contributions to the scholarship. And it's this tightrope situation where you can't go heavy on either side. Because if you go, let's say, on the more individual side, you're presenting research that is really, really original in the sense that it's a different approach, a different methodology, but it may be too original that may confuse the reader. But on the other side, you don't want to sound like you are trying to be another scholar of the past. I'll give an example from my background, which is classical history. There are many scholars and many historians who I greatly admire, and some of them are actually, I have books right next to me. One of them is Wolfram, the other is Mary Beard, the other historian is Harper, and many more. And I love their books, but I would never profess myself to be someone like them. I don't want to be considered like them. I want to give them the respect and their dues. So it's this really complex scenario that we as historians find ourselves in. So for you, Divya, how have you been able to balance the two respectfully?
Right. Another very interesting question, and I think important question. I will draw purely from my own experience.
Okay.
So I had this confusion earlier that you see, big historians have said so much about this fact. So how can I just present without acknowledging, but I also don't want to sound like them?
Right.
In this, the thing that you were saying, right? So in this, I have understood that, you see, when we read their works, when we read earlier historians' work, our brain processes the information, right? And then our brain synthesizes that information for us to form an opinion. So here, to maintain your individuality, to maintain my individual contribution, I will write the synthesis of all of that information in my research paper.
Right.
And through there, I will point out through exact original research works of mine, original point of mine. But when I write what my brain had synthesized from my earlier readings of historians, I will give the historians their due credit. For instance, if I'm writing on, let's say, Indian feudalism, there's this whole topic in Indian history wherein there are set of historians which say that when Europe was in its Middle Ages, what was India doing? So Europe had a feudal economy. What was India doing? India also had something that we called Indian feudalism. There are multiple models here. But when we look at epigraphic and numismatic sources, we have some other insights. So how will I write? I would write that um, R.S. Sharma thinks that this happens.
Mm.
And I would then say that because of this reason, another historian said this, other historian said this. Synthesize that information, write it on your own, and then present your own points. So that way you are giving recognition to the earlier works and also presenting your work in that flow. Flow is the key here.
Yes, absolutely. And this kind of leads into another major question that we may have touched on throughout the interview before we get to the final question, Divya. And this question is this. In the field of history, it may be the same in India as it's here in the US and probably in Europe, that the field of history has two paths once you graduate from university. You can go down the academic path and work as a professor or as a teacher. And the second path is, of course, government, working as a civil servant. Now,
Yes.
a majority of historians that I have interviewed on the show, some have become professors, some are government employees, and those are really important paths to pursue. However, I've noticed a few other historians have gone down the middle path, individuals who have had to create their own career as an historian, because a truth of the matter is, viewers and listeners, being a historian is not a get rich quick money scheme. It is very difficult. It is very hard, especially if you don't go down either of those paths, the academic or the government. At least in those two, you're guaranteed some form of a position on some level. But the middle path is definitely the one that is more difficult. And I feel that as historians, we don't get a lot of workshops as the other disciplines in sense of how we can use our degree to build a career. I'll give an example. When I was at San Francisco State getting my master's in history, I had the opportunity to go to a workshop, which was
Right.
history postgraduate life. And it was individuals on a panel who were historians, but they weren't individuals in government or academia. They were individuals who used their other passions to create their jobs or careers as historians. One individual in particular that I've admired and am following is an author who writes nonfiction historical books as well as historical fiction. I love to write as well. So I realized that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to go down that path. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. I've had my fair share of troubles, but that was the path that I wanted to pursue. So ultimately, Divya, here's the question. In your opinion, do you feel that workshops like these should be an essential part of the historical field so that way it gives students a clear idea of how to use their historical degrees, even if, let's say, they want to go down to either of those paths, at least it gives them a better understanding?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. There is no negative answer from me on this side. Reason being, of course, like you explained yourself, the and from my experience, why I am in favor of this point is because there comes a sense of hopelessness once
Mm,
you graduate in history. You have your techie buddies doing internships like this. You have SEO associate, you have marketing intern, you have editorial intern, everything. But have you ever heard of history intern? No. Archaeology
nope.
intern? No. Nope. It's either a museum assistant, but then that is not an internship. That's direct post. And even in India, museum assistant is a government post. So when to battle this sense of hopelessness, and this is where a clear path to students helps. Like I had mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
people are aware about their career pathways and opportunities when it comes to tech sector, finance, accounting, IR. All of these are very popular subjects.
Right.
People know how to deal with it professionally. For instance, even if it's a humanities subject, if it's economics, go into finance. What is it that an economic advisor can't do? IR, you can go into international relations. There's so many. You have क्या कहते हैं? There are so many institutions who deal with IR. UNESCO hai, you have UN in general, ministries, so much. But what do you do when you graduate with a degree in history? People don't know. So while we end up creating our own pathways, but
Right.
then that takes time, right? That takes
Mhm.
time to minimize this time-taking process of people with history as their degree and them reaching their zenith of success. To minimize this time frame, it's important that we tell students what you can do with your history degree, which is why I'm in favor of this point.
Absolutely, Divya. That is beautifully said. And this segues perfectly into the final question of this incredible historian's interview. So, this is a very loaded question, a very, very deep question. So, I will give context to
Okay.
this. So,
Okay.
I've been doing this podcast for about 6-7 years, and I've had the opportunity to meet a wide range of historians, from fellow students, professors, authors, historical actors, and so forth. And I've learned a lot from them in those 6 to 7 years. And the thing that really stuck with me, both as an historian and an author, is that there are two paths within the two academic roles, which is to be something and to be known as something. To be an historian is an individual dedicated to the scholarship, enhancing the discipline. The second path, to be known as an historian, is dedicated to the business side, growing one's career, publishing papers, being a part of conferences, and so forth. Both have the same end goal, which is fame and success. But from what I've noticed and getting a lot of feedback from the guests on the show, the second path, to be known as an historian, is the most enticing, but leads to a lot of unrealistic goals and expectations. And the harsh truth of the matter is, which we have talked about previously, is that in the field of history, there is no guarantee that your first anything, whether it's your first conference, your first research paper, first publication, is going to guarantee you the start of your legacy. This industry is not a get rich quick money scheme. It is not. It is a hustle. It is a grind.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of sometimes setbacks and fallbacks, and that could be very detrimental to a person's overall, well-being and confidence
Well-being.
in themselves. So here is sort of like a scenario, Divya. Let's say you are a teacher, or let's say you're giving a workshop to undergraduate students who are in the field of history. It's their first year in the study of history. And let's say you've noticed one student, or maybe one student has a question that they are conflicted of whether or not to change majors because they don't know that they are going to be successful in this career path. And they feel that, what's the point? Like, history is a dying art, which I've had some people on the show say that they've encountered that. How would you console them and say that, well, yes, the field of history is going to have its set of setbacks, and you may or may not have everything in order, and there's going to be a lot of stuff against you. You shouldn't see those as setbacks or fallbacks. See them as learning curves, because in the field of history, grit transforms into talent. And as historians, we only get better as time goes on.
How would I um, how would I keep students to come with discipline? That's what you're asking me. How would I convince the students?
Yes. How would you convince the students, as rather motivate them, and saying that,
Motivate
yes,
them.
history is going to be difficult, but if you understand your goals very early on, and that they are realistic goals, no matter what path you take, whether it's academic, civil, or your own, you're going to be successful?
Mhm. I will I will say this in 2 points.
Okay.
Number one, number one, I would first clarify, talk to the student and clarify whether you have this inner calling or not. History is not easy to pursue. You
Yes, that
really
is
need
very
to be
true.
interested in this. You need to have interest in it because old stories which have no surroundings around you, you can't relate to it. You need to have interest, inner calling to pursue this discipline. So, first, I would
Yes.
like to channelize that feeling within the student as to why you took history. What was that thing which made you tick on this subject in the form? First, I would like to talk to the student in this manner, wherein they fall in love with the discipline and the choice that they've made all over again. Secondly, I would lay down a list of career options for them or developing your skill set. So, for instance, if you want to be an archaeologist in India, what is it that you need to keep pursuing this? You need to have your graduation, post graduation, you need to have another historical language degree, whatever it is. Government exam, coaching for the government exam, whatever it is, keep doing it. So once the person has their inner calling revised and a career path in front of them, okay, I can try this, I can keep going in this line, and as I keep finding opportunities, I'll handle it that way. Once you give a vision to the student and revise that inner calling, I think we can motivate the people to keep history as their major.
Absolutely. Well said, Divya. And with that, viewers and listeners, we conclude this incredible and very, very in depth historians interview here on the show. I want to give a huge thank you to Divya for coming on the show, and we wish her the very best in her future post master's degree. That is a huge feat, and we wish her the very best in her fields of history, archaeology, museology, and many more. Now, Divya, where can people find you on social media and the internet if people want to reach out and connect? And do you have any research papers that are published online for people to view and read?
Yes, I am actually quite active on LinkedIn. So if you just type my name, you'll find it on LinkedIn. Just look for epigraphy, look for numismatics below it. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Secondly, email ID. I usually prefer email ID for contacts like this.
Mm-hmm.
And for research papers, I do have one published in the history department journal of my college of University of Delhi. And the two other ones are in my institute, not yet out to be read by common people. And the other one is in the course of publishing. However, for other academic writings of mine, I can share links of Kriyas Nashik, Center for Indian Arts, Center for Research in Indian Arts, Archaeology and Sciences, because I wrote for them as part of their academic writing team. So I can share that link, that whole list of articles that I wrote for them with you, Gabriel.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll link all of down below in the description of this video. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for an amazing historians interview here on the show. A huge thank you to Divya for making her official debut
Thank you as
on the
well.
channel. And we hope that this is not the last time we see her. Hopefully, we have her back on again for a follow-up historians interview, or even possibly in season 3 or even season 4 of the Historians Lounge. In fact, if you would like to see Divya back on the show in either of those two, comment down below. And also make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with the upcoming episodes later this week. And as always, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And until next time, we'll see you all in the next episode.